You might feel like life has left you behind, like everyone else is moving forward, finding purpose and building dreams, while you're just standing still, wondering if God has forgotten your name. But let me tell you something powerful right here, right now. You're not alone, and God still has a plan for you. Maybe you've been through things you never asked for: heartbreak, betrayal, failure, or loss. You've cried in silence, prayed until you had no more words, and asked God, why me? But what if I told you that even in the silence, even in the waiting, God was still working behind the scenes, shaping something beautiful out of your pain? Because the truth is, when everything feels like it's falling apart, it's often falling into place according to His plan. You see, God doesn't waste pain. Every tear you've cried, every sleepless night you've endured, every time you thought it was over, He saw it all. He was right there with you, not distant, not ignoring you, but whispering, hold on, I'm not done with you yet. Maybe you don't see it now, but God specializes in turning broken pieces into something glorious. Think about Joseph, betrayed by his brothers, thrown into a pit, sold as a slave, and forgotten in prison. It must have felt like God abandoned him. But what Joseph didn't know then was that God was positioning him for a purpose greater than he could ever imagine. The pit wasn't punishment, it was preparation. The prison wasn't rejection, it was redirection. And when the time was right, God raised Joseph from the pit to the palace. Maybe you're in your pit season right now. Maybe life doesn't make sense and everything feels heavy. But just because you're in the pit doesn't mean the palace isn't coming. You're not buried, you're planted. And when God plants something, it's only a matter of time before it grows. Sometimes we confuse silence for absence. We think that because God isn't speaking, He's not working. But faith isn't about hearing God all the time. It's about trusting that He's still there even when you don't. The same God who walked with Daniel in the lion's den, who stood with the 3 Hebrew boys in the fire, who comforted Elijah in the cave, is the same God who's walking beside you right now, even if you can't feel Him. He hasn't left you, He's leading you. You're not lost. You're being led through a season that's meant to shape your faith, not destroy it. You see, we often want God to show us the whole plan, but He rarely does. He shows us one step at a time because faith grows in the unknown. It's easy to believe when everything makes sense, but real faith is built when nothing does. Maybe you've been praying for something for a long time, a breakthrough, a healing, a sign, and it hasn't come yet. You've started to wonder if God even cares. But let me remind you, God's delays are not His denials. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it never will. God's timing is perfect, even when it feels painfully slow. Remember, before David became king, he spent years hiding in caves. Before Moses led Israel, he spent 40 years in the wilderness. Before Jesus began His ministry, He spent 30 years in quiet preparation. The waiting season isn't wasted. It's where God builds the strength, humility, and endurance you'll need for what's next. Sometimes God hides you before He uses you. He hides you not because you're forgotten, but because He's protecting you from things you're not ready for yet. So if life feels quiet, it's not rejection, it's protection. You're still in His hands. The enemy wants you to believe you're all alone, that nobody understands, and that your life doesn't matter anymore. But that's a lie straight from the pit of hell. You're chosen, you're loved, you're seen. God hasn't moved on without you. He's moving with you. Even in your weakest moments, when you can barely pray, when your heart feels heavy and your faith feels small, God's grace is still holding you together. The same God who hung the stars in the sky knows your name, your pain, your dreams, and your purpose, and He's not finished with you. Maybe this season is breaking you, but it's not the end of your story. Sometimes God allows brokenness to make room for breakthrough. Sometimes He lets certain doors close because He's preparing a better one to open. And sometimes the very thing you thought was destroying you is the thing God is using to develop you. Every setback is a setup for a comeback. Every delay is divine alignment. Every unanswered prayer is a redirection towards something greater. So instead of asking, why me? Start asking, what are you teaching me, God? Because when you shift your question, you shift your perspective. And when you shift your perspective, you start to see His hand even in the dark. You might not have all the answers, but you have the one who does. You don't need to understand everything to trust that God is good. You just need to hold on to His promise that He works all things together for good to those who love Him and are called according to His purpose. Romans 8:28. That means even this, even your pain, even your waiting, even your heartbreak is being used by God for something good. You're not alone. Every time you thought, no one understands what I'm going through, God was whispering, I do. Every time you felt like giving up, He was strengthening you. Every time you felt invisible, He was watching over you. When you cried yourself to sleep, He was right beside you. He's been with you in every valley, every storm, every sleepless night. You were never alone, not for a second. You see, God doesn't just walk with you in the good times, He carries you through the bad ones. And when you come out of this, and you'll look back and realize He was guiding you all along. You'll see that the tears that once blinded you were actually watering your roots. You'll see that the very season that broke you also built you. You'll see that His plan was perfect all along. So lift your head, child of God. Wipe your tears. This is not the end of your story. God's not done writing it. You may not see the whole picture yet, but He does. And when the time is right, you'll understand why you had to go through what you did. Until then, trust Him. Hold on to Him, because He's holding on to you. You're not alone, never have been, never will be. God still has a plan for you.